Good evening, everyone. This is High Point Mayor Jay Wagner. Speaking for those who are listening online, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to our first meeting for the month of March 2022. Before we begin our meeting, I would like to ask everyone to rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. It's always good to see a room with lots of folks in it, taking an interest in what's going on in their local government. So, welcome. First thing on the agenda tonight is a recognition and presentation regarding Arbor Day. And so for that, I'm going to recognize Andy Piper from our planning staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Andy Piper, Senior Planner with the Planning and Development Department. Before the Mayor reads this year's Arbor Day proclamation, I just wanted to talk briefly about High Point's receiving its 18th Tree City USA designation for its efforts to plant and maintain trees this past year. There are 4 criteria for receiving this award. You must have a public tree ordinance, a tree board, a community forestry program with an annual expenditures of at least $2 per capita, and an Arbor Day observance and proclamation. Being recognized as a Tree City USA means that we as a community understand that in addition to beautification, trees play an important practical role in our city, but it takes responsible stewardship. The city's Urban Forestry Committee oversees implementation of our public tree ordinance and the guidelines and standards of practices that all property owners are encouraged to follow. The committee also works with local businesses and community groups to plant trees. For example, this past fall, in partnership with Keep High Point Beautiful and over 35 private donors, including High Point University, we completed the community cultivation campaign to replace 44 trees on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. We have also planted 6 trees this planting season through the Plant to Remember Memorial Program, bringing the total to over 100 trees planted since that program began. As you will hear in the proclamation, there are many economic benefits to planting trees, including increased property values that help contribute to the city's bottom line. It also greatly affects the livability of the city. By striving to plant a new tree for every tree removed on city-owned property, the city plays a direct role in improving its residents' quality of life. Thank you, and now, Mr. Mayor, for the reading of the proclamation. Thank you.
Whereas trees are a precious natural resource that improve the appearance of our community, increase the value of property, moderate air temperature, lower energy costs, reduce soil erosion and stormwater runoff, and produce life-giving oxygen. And whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Architecture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this special day, known as Arbor Day, is now celebrated throughout the nation and the world, and whereas the state of North Carolina has determined that Arbor Day shall be celebrated annually on the first Friday following the 15th of March. And whereas the city of High Point has created an urban forestry program to conserve, protect, and maintain trees in city spaces. Now therefore, I, J.W. Wagner, Mayor of the city of High Point, do hereby proclaim March 18th, 2022 as Arbor Day for the city of High Point, and call upon all citizens of our city to participate in ceremonies and activities to preserve and enhance our community's urban forest for the benefit of all our residents and visitors. Thank you. Would you like to have this?
You gonna get a picture with him? Thanks, Andy.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to move to our strategic plan update. I'll begin by recognizing Councilmember Chris Williams, who is the chairman of our Community Development Committee, who will provide a update on our strategic plan regarding blight reduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you will bear with me, have a bit of a technical difficulty here. Okay. So during the month of January, the local code enforcement, the LCE staff processed 23 minimum housing complaints, 47 new public nuisance complaints, and collected 189 signs. Additionally, during the month of February, the LEC staff recorded 18 zoning complaints. A total of 27 public nuisance cases were abated, 6 by the city and 21 owner abated. Due to the short-staffed LCE, staff did not work on Saturday to collect signs. 5 properties with ordinances passed are in the appeals period, and demolition bids will be requested when the appeal period has expired. 3 properties have been bidded out for demolition so far. See, one property the owner will be demolishing themselves. There are 7 housing cases in the ordinance passed for demolitions waiting for repairs to be completed. Once again, that is 337 Wingo, 210 Underhill, 1221 Franklin, 2206 Gable Way, and 1113 Jefferson, 524 Cross, and 1004 Prospect. Candidates have been selected for the vacant inspector positions. During the report period, there are 384 total active cases, and that is 245 active minimum housing cases, 44 active public nuisance cases, and 95 active zoning cases. I'll now turn the floor over to Lori Loosemore.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So we're going to continue with housing being repaired because nobody can get tired of that, I hope. So this was a house at 1112 Meadowbrook that we had originally inspected, and I have a time frame after I get in to the report, but these are just the before pictures when we were out there to do the inspection and what the house looked like. So we started our inspection in August of 2017. We held a hearing and issued an order with a compliance date of October 3rd, 2017. I have a wrong date on there, I apologize. The owners were issued a permit for repairs, and then they sold the property, and then that person sold the property in 2018. So 2019, 2020, we were monitoring the property, and the owner was making some repairs on the outside. They did obtain a permit in March of 2021, and they completed the repairs just this year. And this is what the house looks like now. And I believe they're putting it up for sale, and they were staging it for pictures for it to be offered up. The other house we had at 700 Park Street, we did an inspection on, and we did not have any prior interior pictures, so I apologize, but this is what the outside of the house looked like at the time of our inspection. And we started our inspection on this in December of 2019. We held a hearing. We issued an order to the owner to repair, demolish. They had advised the inspectors in 2020 that they were going to make the repairs, and they stated they were going to sell the property. So the inspector followed up several months later to ask what was going on because nothing had happened, and they said there had been an issue with the closing, but they were going to close shortly, and they did. They closed the following month. And then the inspector contacted the new owner in February, and he advised they would be starting the repairs shortly, which he obtained a permit that same day to make repairs. And that was just completed earlier this end of February, first part of this month. And this is what the house looks like, and it is going to be owner occupied. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Just one question. Actually, it's really good for a question. How many staffers are, like the inspectors, how many inspectors will there be?
If we're up to full staff, we have 6 inspectors in the field. We were down to 2 for about 2 to 3 weeks, and now we're up to 3, and I have 2 more starting next Monday, and then we expect to have another one coming on in March, end of March. Just in time for growing season.
Very good. Thank you. Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay, next, I will turn this portion of the agenda over to Councilmember Michael Holmes, who is the chair of our Marketing and Branding Task Force.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Task Force met in February. We met to discuss the future role of the task force in the execution of our campaign. We've selected Civic Brands as the firm that will lead that. We came to the resolution that the task force going forward will act as advisory, support, and communication. Will advise on key stakeholders, will support in the facilitation of any relationships or communication from Civic Brand to our stakeholders, and then our primary function going forward will be communication of the changes in the execution of the campaign to the community. So if anyone has any questions about the changes that they see or questions about the campaign going forward, the task force will be the point of contact to be able to explain that to the community going forward. So we also tasked the task force with submitting some dates of events that would be good for the first visits for Civic Brands, and they're returning that to our marketing team. So going forward, then we're right on the doorstep, and we're pretty excited about the campaign.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Anyone have questions about either of those updates? Okay, hearing none, I'll move now to our public comment period. Those who have registered or have written their names down to speak at the public comment period, I will call on you first. I would ask that you please come to the podium and that you give your name and your address for our minutes. And also, I would ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There's a clock on the wall. If you're here as part of a group, we're happy to recognize you as a group, and you can have someone speak for that group if you would like. If you would like to speak and you didn't have time or didn't get to sign up on the list, there will still be an opportunity, but I'm going to call on the folks on the list first. Okay? So, with that, first person on the list is Angela Robertson.
Good evening. I am Angela Robertson, 1452 Cantwell Court, High Point. I'm the organizer of Daniel Brooks Keepers of the Name, and my group, along with 432 people, have signed a petition in regards to the new redevelopment of Brooks Legacy Ridge. And we're asking City Council to recommend to Laurel Street the name Brooks Legacy Ridge. An effort to retain Daniel Brooks' name began in 2019. It was not until last week that we were informed that the redevelopment has been privatized. So I'll end my comments with a few questions. Why did council choose not to inform the city or the commemoration committee or Daniel Brooks Keepers of the Name that you had privatized the redevelopment? Why, how, and when did you make the decision to privatize the redevelopment of Daniel Brooks homes? Was City Council one of the stakeholders who recommended deleting Daniel Brooks' name? Has City Council or staff provided any history about Daniel Brooks, his family, or Daniel Brooks' homes to Laurel Street? Is there any mechanism, provision, policy, or law to ensure that a certain number of units will permanently be available to low and moderate income persons? Is Daniel Brooks' home still a HUD property? Who owns the land that the site of Daniel Brooks' homes is located? Since development is now private, does that mean that HUD's $43.5 million and the city's $6.5 million is now in Laurel Street's hands? Is the city of High Point one of the investors in the redevelopment of Daniel Brooks homes? And are we to expect future bonds to fund the privatization for the other 146 units that are not in the current project? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Next on the list is Bernie Ingram.
Good evening. I was asked to speak tonight as a former resident of Daniel Brooks, and when I heard the name of the proposed development for that site, Legacy Ridge, the first thing that came to my mind was, whose legacy? If you strip the name Daniel Brooks from that site, you essentially wipe out the legacy of the man for whom that community was named. You essentially wipe out the lives and the names and the faces of all those tens of thousands of people who grew up and lived in that community over a period of almost 80 years. Their trials, their triumphs, the good, the bad, and the ugly seem to be gone. And a plaque somewhere on the property, just to me, does not seem to be enough. I remember more than 50 years ago in Daniel Brooks, the streets were cement. The addresses were like 17A, 5A, 29F, and eventually the streets were resurfaced and the streets were given names. Our address then became 1439 West Street. But if you would ask any of the folks in here tonight who lived in Daniel Brooks, or anyone else you run across, where they lived and where they grew up, they wouldn't give you a street name. They wouldn't name West Avenue. They wouldn't say Henley Street. They would simply say Daniel Brooks. That is the sense of community that we felt then and that we feel now. Daniel Brooks is part and parcel of who we are and who we have become. Now, I also believe that I understand that in recent years there have been some difficult times in that neighborhood, like in many neighborhoods. However, would this not have been the perfect time to do what I call redeem the history? Can we not redeem the legacy and take what some people think were bad and turn it into a good? Can we not redeem the legacy of the man, the legacy of the community, and the legacy of the people who lived in that community? Daniel Brooks is who we are. It made us who we are today. I know there's been some crime and some problems, but everybody who grew up in Daniel Brooks over 80 years did not commit crimes. A lot of good folk came out of that community, and I don't think it's right to do away with their legacy, our legacy, where we came from. A few days ago, I heard an old African proverb. It goes something like this: we must first reclaim the past. Then we can move forward. Then we can understand how and why we became who we have become. Legacy Ridge, the question is, whose legacy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Next person on the list is Eileen Roberts.
I am Eileen Roberts, and I live at 829 Circle Drive. I'm in Ward 1. This is near High Point University, and I've lived in that area for 46 years. I represent my family here, and our concern is that High Point University might be pursuing closure of East Lexington Avenue between University Parkway and Centennial Street. The university has property now on both sides of this block, and it has recently opened the Quabain Arena and Conference Center, which hosts athletic events on a regular basis. This block has been temporarily closed several times during these events. We well remember when Montlou Avenue was rerouted around the university, and then later in 2014, the portion of Montlou Avenue passing through the campus was permanently closed. We fear that High Point University will again dictate the closure of a main thoroughfare. Why are we opposed? East Lexington Avenue is a major artery within the city, connecting West and East High Point. It is important for police, fire, and EMS vehicles to travel this street to reach emergencies quickly. With the Lexington Avenue closure, this would not be possible. East Lexington Avenue handles more than 13,000 cars a day. Therefore, rerouting this traffic to an already very busy Martin Luther King Avenue and Eastchester Drive would create significant congestion. It would also be very inconvenient to citizens in the area and lengthen their driving time for work and other activities. Possible solutions. We are aware of large attendance to athletic events at High Point U. Currently, there are 2 traffic lights that allow attendees to cross East Lexington Avenue from parking areas. More sidewalks are needed to be installed so people can safely walk to these lights. The lights can be timed longer for crossing. Police can direct folks. We also think consideration could be given to building a pedestrian walkway over the street, which would allow larger numbers of guests to cross safely. Our request to City Council is to keep High Point citizens aware of proceedings in this matter, so citizen input can be given and be considered before decisions are made. We will be watching what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. The next person on the list, I cannot read your writing. You live at 1421, is it Wendell Avenue? To speak about Daniel Brooks?
Thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Can you
I have to
give us
apologize.
your
My
name
name
and
is
address, please?
Dr. James K. Gripper, Gripper. I have a torn rotor cuff here. Can't write too well.
Okay.
And I really am up for surgery pretty soon. But I'm here on behalf of Daniel Brooks, in support of Daniel Brooks, and to say that I think it would be a great disservice, not only to High Point, but most importantly, to the black community, to not maintain the name of Daniel Brooks for that facility. Many of my fellow students at William Penn, classmates, lived in Daniel Brooks area, and I'm sure if I had been on this side of town, I probably wouldn't have been living there myself. But I just wanted to make sure that there's a considerable consideration on behalf of this name that has been so long held in high esteem in the community. As the gentleman said earlier, no one ever said anything about an address. All you had to say was Daniel Brooks, and that was your passport. But whatever you needed to do or say or have done. And I just want to make sure that the council and everyone is very much aware of the need and the importance of maintaining the Daniel Brooks legacy.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on the list is Phil Bird.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Phil Bird. I live at 5910 Bartlett Drive, that's Greensboro, North Carolina, in between Pleasant Garden and Jamestown. I'm here tonight just to want the council to be familiar with who I am. I am a candidate for Guilford County Sheriff. I retired in 2014 as a commander after 30 years of service. I began my career there in 1985, and my supervisory experience and command experience was 9 years as a detective sergeant. I spent 3 years as an operational lieutenant and 10 years as a commander over 4 separate divisions before I retired. I've worked with High Point, I've worked with Greensboro a great deal throughout my career. I spent 6 years in narcotics, worked High Point right much, and I would like to say I appreciate High Point's council have been very supportive to law enforcement through the years. I hope that continues, and I hope that a lot of folks take that across the nation and support their law enforcement officers. It's very important at this time that we do that. So I just want to make sure that you've got a face when you see signs around of who I am, and I appreciate this opportunity to be coming before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. Phyllis Bridges.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I am here tonight on behalf of the Washington Street Historical Preservation Society. We were organized in June 2019, and our mission is to protect, preserve, revitalize, and maintain the architect, the historical significance of the homes, businesses, and structures in the Washington Street District. A lot of people do not know that the Washington Street District contains the most intact collection of mid to 20th century commercial, industrial, and residential buildings in the state of North Carolina. This is why we need to step forward and save this area. We met with, in July 2019, we met with the city staff member and Benjamin Briggs, who is the executive director of the Preservation Greensboro, to explain to us what is the policies, procedures, the guidelines to get a local historical district layover for this area. After we met with these two gentlemen, we attended the Washington Street Neighborhood Association meeting to introduce ourselves, this new group, and what our mission was and our goal. And again, Benjamin Briggs was present, and I think a city staff member. So we could open the floor up for people to ask questions as to why we exist and what's our goal. We met in March 2020 to present to the High Point Preservation Commission a PowerPoint presentation to introduce ourselves, our goal, our mission, and what we wanted to accomplish. After that, one of the things we had to do was to get a petition moving. And that petition was to get the signature from the property owners from Washington Street. We obtained approximately 80% of the names of the property owners for Washington Street, all African Americans, and we also had a petition floating online where we got over 500 signatures from people in the city, out of the state, and across the country in support of getting a local designation for Washington Street, because Washington Street is not recognized by the city as a historical district. We've been at this since 2019, up until February 2022. We have not been able to move as fast as we would like to get this process done. Also in April 2021, we came before the High Point Preservation Commission to request the local designation for Washington Street, and that a motion was made and recommended that staff identify potential funding for the designation, and the commission approved the motion by a 7-0 vote, which means they agree that we should get this local designation and we should move forward. We have not gotten much movement since then. We have not gotten much feedback from the city. Whenever I reach back, we're talking. How much longer do we have to keep talking in order to make this happen? Also, during the time that we started moving on this particular project, we got the local designation for John Coltrane House. Got it, done, over with. We're still waiting on this to take place. We have to save these structures, the houses in this district, because that's our history, that's our culture. And we're not going to let it just be wiped away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Briggs. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during the public comment period? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Manager Logan Ford. My name is Frank Thomas. I pastor Mount Zion Baptist Church, 753 Washington Street, and I'm here tonight also to speak on behalf of keepers of the name for the Daniel Brooks homes. However, I would be remiss if I did not mention the passing of Mr. Hank Wall. Many of us know Hank as a pillar in this community and the leader of Brothers Organized to Support Others. So if I may get a pause in my time for a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Wall. Thank you. A few years ago, voters in High Point voted to approve a $6.5 million bond for the Daniel Brooks project. So I'd like to bring up the word transparency, or the lack thereof. Another project that was approved was the City Lake Park update, and we have been bombarded with updates about the City Lake project. We've heard very little about the Daniel Brooks project. However, we've learned recently that the Daniel Brooks project was privatized, and I'm confused. On Sunday, yesterday, there was a letter from the executive director of the CEO of the Housing Authority who talked about transparency. She mentioned that the Legacy Ridge name was chosen in May 2021. Keepers of the name wrote a letter to the Housing Authority in February 2022, and then there was a press release a few days later. So from May 2021 to May 2022. And she mentioned in her letter the reason for the press release was because of transparency. I submit there's a lack of transparency. I don't know if the name is going to be changed back to Daniel Brooks or not, but I just submit and ask that if the voters have voted, then the voters ought to know what's going on with that project. So I leave you with this question. What did you know, and when did you know it? The public deserves transparency.
Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public comment period. I would like to say one bit about Daniel Brooks. First and foremost, this board has no control over the name of Daniel Brooks. And we're not the ones that make the decision on that. That is a function of the Housing Authority Board. We can certainly ask the manager to speak with the folks at the Housing Authority and perhaps provide more information on exactly how the redevelopment is going. I know, Ms. Robertson, you had a very long list of questions, and I think most of those questions can be answered through some better contact with the Housing Authority Board, and I'm sure we'll be happy to facilitate that. And we certainly appreciate, speaking on behalf of the board, but mainly for myself, I certainly appreciate you coming out tonight and expressing your opinion. But we don't control the name of what that redevelopment is. That is a housing authority project, and they're the ones that control that. So we do have a representative, Chris Williams, serves on that board, but that's not a decision that the city council makes. I want y'all to know that because I don't want there to be any false impression that we're the ones that are pushing for the name to be changed. But I certainly do appreciate all of you coming out, and I know, speaking for myself, that I hear you and I certainly hear your passion. So I do want you to know that before we move forward in our agenda. And I'm sure, Ms. Robertson, if you can give us that list of questions you have, we'll be happy to pass that on to the Housing Authority and see if we can get some questions or what might be able to be done to provide some more communication with the community. Okay. All right. Moving on then in our agenda, the next item is the Finance Committee portion of the agenda. And for that, I'll be turning the meeting over to Councilman Britt Moore.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to give the room just a second to clear. That's all right with you? I don't guess they wanted to hear what I had to say.
Depends on what you're going to say.
That'd be fair to say.
That was a low blow. Teed that one up, didn't he? All right. Mayor and council, the Finance Committee did meet at our regularly scheduled time. We have three separate categories within finance agenda tonight. The first one before you is our items that made it to our consent agenda, and I will make a motion that those items be approved.
Second.
And there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items as listed on your agenda. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda items, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. The next items fall under our regular agenda items, and they have to do with some bond obligations, and Bobby Fitzjohn has stepped up to discuss each item. Do you want to go through all of those, and then we'll vote at the end on each item as I read, or do you want to do it as you go along?
We can do that if that's your preference. I think I can go through them pretty quickly.
Okay.
So you all have seen me up here. These are pretty much procedural items in order to issue bonds, and I'll kind of go through each one of the items individually. So first, we have a resolution to authorize the issuance of our 2022 D general obligation refunding bonds. Back in January, when we first started looking at these, they were very attractive. The market's changed a little bit. We still anticipate we will issue some refunding bonds, but maybe not the savings we were initially looking at in January. We do typically try to issue these when we're already issuing new money. There's a lot of efficiency in place, so there's not a lot of extra work even if we scale this back a little bit, but there should be some significant savings in the 2012 issuances. The next resolution after that is the revenue bond. This basically gives staff the authorization to apply to the LGC to issue revenue bonds for $40 million of revenue bond projects that you all have already approved. These are water sewer fund projects. The item kind of lays them out. It's the Registers Creek Lift Station, the Richland Creek Sewer Outfall, Riverdale Sewer Lift Station, West Force Main, and the UV system at Eastside. So those are already underway, already approved. This is just the financing mechanism for those. And then finally, you all introduced a bond order at the last meeting in order to authorize staff to issue up to $5.3 million in general obligation parks and recreation bonds. That's the rest of that City Lake Park funding outside of the 2019 referendum. And I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Stay right there as we go through these. So the first item is 2022-102. And so I would like to introduce and adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of High Point, North Carolina, making certain statements of fact concerning proposed bond issue. And I make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for that item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. We're still under item, in that same item category, and I would like to introduce and adopt a bond order authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $20 million in general obligation refunding bonds of the City of High Point, North Carolina. And I so move.
Second.
Motion, and there's a second by Councilman Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. The next item is 2022-103, and I would like to introduce and adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of High Point, North Carolina, directing the application to the Local Government Commission for approval of combined enterprise system revenue bonds, requesting local government commission approval and certain related matters. And I so move.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes.
The next item is 2022-104, and I will open the public hearing on the previously introduced general obligation parks and recreation bonds. Anyone to speak to that? If not, I'll close the public hearing on that.
That's good.
Good?
Yep.
All right. Next action is to adopt the previously introduced bond order authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $5.3 million in general obligation parks and recreation bonds of the city of High Point, North Carolina, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of that item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
The next items are, we have a couple of public hearings. So I would like to recognize Sandy Dunbeck, the Economic Development Director for the City of High Point.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Wagner, members of council, and Manager Logan Ford. I am Sandy Dunbeck, Director of High Point Economic Development, and with me is my colleague, Sarah Stevenson. And we are pleased tonight to bring to you a project for Cone Health, Allergy, and Asthma. They are a current High Point business focused on the healthcare industry. They're currently located in downtown High Point at 100 Westwood Avenue and are considering relocating to a vacant building at 400 North Elm Street. Cone Health, Allergy, and Asthma provides services to patients in High Point and across the Greater Triad area, many of whom are on Medicare or Medicaid. The company is considering the lease of a 6,460 square foot building that's currently vacant at 400 North Elm Street in downtown High Point, and they would invest $315,000 in building upfits within the first year. The project would maintain the existing 11 staff members and would include the addition of 4 new positions for the practice. The budget impact of these monies would be on the city's Economic Development Incentive Fund, which is funded by general and electric revenues. With us here tonight is Dr. Jose Bartoles, and he has a presentation for you so that you can learn more about this exciting project. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Bartoles.
Mayor Wagner and City Council members. I'm Tony Bartoles. I came to High Point in 1977 and started a practice for asthma and allergies. My wife and I have been very active in the community. For example, coaching kids at the YMCA, continuing to participate in Meals on Wheels, and so forth. But in 1986, Dr. Becky's mother asked me to be part of the Citizens Advisory Council. And that was an excellent learning experience on how the city operates. There were members from every ward, and in conjunction with the city staff, which was excellent, we determined what was the best use for the funds that HUD gave to the city of High Point. So, getting back to our practice, I started it in 1977 and was asked to go to Greensboro also in 1978. We moved into our current location in 1982, and subsequent to that, we expanded into Asheboro, Reedsville, and Oak Ridge. Now, the High Point location is the business hub for our practice, so everything comes out of the High Point location. Last summer, we became aware that there were properties on North Elm Street available for leasing. And this is the current building at the corner of North Main and Westwood, and we wanted to be very close if possible. The 400 North Elm Street location was built in 1984, and there was some renovation over 20 years ago, and it is totally outdated. And it has been vacant now for over 6 months. So that's the reason why we have looked at this site. Now, since 1977, I felt that we wanted to take care of all patients, Medicaid, Medicare, uninsured, and have followed that tradition to this time. We have always been close to a bus line, which will help patients of low-income Medicare, Medicaid. And we see 400 patients a week, and 40% of the patients come from outside the city limits of High Point. Many come from Davidson and Randolph County, including many from Lexington. And by going to this location, we could expand our services so patients who are new patients don't have to wait 6 weeks to be seen for their first visit. However, if a physician calls and asks that we see a patient, we see them. That's part of our agenda. So we plan to have a 10-year lease, or hope to have a 10-year lease. We have 5 allergists under the age of 40. So we're making a long-term commitment to downtown High Point. The upfit cost given to us by Dunbar and Smith is at least $315,000. This will allow us to bring another allergist into our practice, make a nurse practitioner full-time, add a medical assistant and a billing clerk with an average salary of $80,500, and we can retain our current employees. Now, we affiliated with Cone Health back in 2010, and it's been a great association. But I want to specify to you that the doctors are the ones who are paying for the entire cost of the outfit. Last Friday, I attended the Oyster Roast at Condon Yards, and we have supported and sponsored this organization, Family Service of the People. I'm sorry about a senior moment. The attendance was enormous. I've been at this for many years. The number of young people in their 20s and 30s was unheard of. So I think the development that you all have done to bring people in the center city is going to pay lots of dividends for the future of High Point. Like I said, we have 400 patients who are not used to North Elm Street coming to our office on Main Street, who are now going through North Elm Street and seeing the facilities. So I think it will help promote many activities that the city will have. But I would like to thank you all for letting me present this information, and I will take any questions that you all may have.
I have a question. Dr. Bartles, if this Councilman Moore, if approved, what's your timeline? And maybe it was said and I missed.
Okay, we hope to be in by fall. Okay? So, and the new employees will be within 2 years.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Bartles, for all your support in the community and supporting the family services of Piedmont.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Brett, make sure you open the public hearing. Got that, okay. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Bartles. The High Point EDC staff would recommend that City Council consider...
Hold on just a minute. I
Oh,
may
I'm
have got
sorry.
offline. Okay, I did. So at this time, I'm going to open a public hearing and have Sandy make comments.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
The High Point EDC staff recommends that City Council consider authorizing performance-based incentives for this project in the amount of $75,000, and that you also authorize the city manager to execute a performance agreement with the company containing benchmarks for the company to achieve and a schedule for the payment of such financial incentives.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from council further? Is there anyone in the audience in regard to speak to this matter? Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing, and I will go ahead and make a motion for approval of this item.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Are there any comments, questions? I'll just say, Dr. Bartles, I'm happy that you're staying in High Point, and look forward to having you near the stadium. I think you're going to see, if you move there, that there's going to be a whole lot more activity coming very soon. You're going to be right in the middle of a lot of action.
Well, thank you so much, and we do plan to stay in High Point and fill our health certificates.
Well, I hope that's not for a long time.
For a long time.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Did we vote? All those in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next item is 2022-106, a public hearing consideration for performance-based incentives. And Sandy Dunbeck will speak to this item.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sarah was walking around there. I thought maybe she was going to do it.
She's keeping us straight, for sure. So, thank you very much. We have another exciting project for the downtown tonight, and the project is DNA Beverage. They are proposing to do business as Nomad Wineworks. They're interested in having an urban micro winery location in downtown High Point. And the proposed incentives are based upon the City of High Point's targeted downtown policy. And Nomad Wineworks is considering a potential lease of 4,900 square feet at the 432 North Wren Street location in downtown High Point. And this would be based upon the rent assistance incentives of 45, 35, 25, and 15% of base rent over a 4-year period. With us tonight are David Armstrong and Aaron Sizemore, the principals of the company. They'll speak with you in a moment. They also have a presentation. And the budget impact, the source of the monies for these incentives would be the city's Economic Development Incentive Fund, funded by general and electric revenues. And with that, I'll turn it over, I believe, first to David Armstrong.
As he's coming forward, I will open up the public hearing on this matter, and you can introduce them, Sandy.
Okay, all right, so thank you, David.
Good evening, members of council, Mayor Wagner. Thank you for your time in hearing this project. We know there's been an ongoing push to develop more stuff in the downtown area. We appreciate that vision and look forward to becoming a part of it. Both Aaron and I have been long-term residents of High Point, and as we started to develop this project and idea, we kept coming back to the downtown area to look for spots and knew that that was the place we needed to be with this project. The definition of an urban winery is a production facility that creates wine and produces wine in an urban environment versus the agricultural area of a vineyard. It's a very unique concept, and we feel that this kind of concept will help drive visitors from other cities and outlying areas of High Point to come to High Point as a destination. It will also help to retain local residents that might be going to other places in their free time, like Greensboro and Winston-Salem, this is an opportunity to retain those people and give them something else in this area. We'll be focusing on producing wines using local grapes from vineyards in North Carolina, but also some of the more major wine regions of the United States. We would also be purchasing honey to make mead, which is honey wine, from local vendors as well, and also apples and orchard fruits to make cider. Along with our lineup of alcoholic beverages, we would also be creating non-alcoholic beverages such as sodas and teas. We think this would overall kind of help us become more family-friendly and reach a larger audience than just alcoholic beverages. Our proposed location at 432 Wren puts us in the heart of downtown, along with an ever-growing group of businesses that are making High Point more livable and walkable for its residents and for visitors. We understand that community involvement is very important, and we look forward to the opportunity to be involved in the community in different charitable organizations. These are some of the ones that we currently work with, personal-wise and also in business. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron now. He's going to go over some more of the details of the experience and the aesthetics of the project.
Thank you, David, for doing a lot of the heavy lifting of the presentation. I want to say thank you to Mr. Mayor and the distinguished council members for having us here tonight. We appreciate this opportunity. So what I'm going to describe to you is some of the updates and some of the aesthetics that's going to be that's proposed for this location at 432 North Wren Street. We first start out with seeing an updated facade. It's going to be renovated and updated by being inset. There's going to be some cafe seating out front. I think it's going to be inset, what, 10 feet or so? About 10 feet. So it gives a nice first experience as you go in for people to be able to sit. It's also going to be furnished with high-end aesthetics as far as nice plants, creating the first experience as you come into Nomad Wineworks, trying to help solidify the experience of the modern tap room. All right. So then we kind of have the outdoor area in the back. So we're basically going to have a front cafe setting, and then in the rear we're going to have a wine garden. You can kind of see, as is shown in the picture, these are just mood boards of some of the feels that we're kind of going for. Just think relaxing, comfortable, family-friendly, organic environment. And with the space that we have, it's going to offer space to have flexible event space. So it'll help with if you want to have birthday parties, corporate events, wedding receptions. We'll even do tours and educational things to just let people know more about the process. And we think that's important. Let's see. So the next shot is going to be some of the decor that we have in mind for the space. Let's see. It's we're just trying to elevate the experience and of what's possible in High Point and help raise the bar for entertainment in the triad. So yeah, and then and again, here are some more internal furnishings that would be possible in there. So just to kind of give you an idea of what it would feel like inside. So let's see. In conclusion, Dave and I would like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and everyone who has helped work on this process. Sandy and Sarah, we appreciate it. And now, if you have any questions, we would love to answer them for you if you have any. So, thank you.
It's okay. Not for me, because I'm always the designated driver, but what is your time frame on this?
Well, we're kind of working with the landlord. We're working you know, with you guys. We're getting in bids, so we're hoping to start construction, if everything goes well, in the next month to 2 months, and then we would love to be open before the end of the year, so before fall, somewhere around in there, so, yeah.
He's a furniture market guy, so he's probably hoping you'll be open by the fall market.
Well, we would love it. That would be,
Don't get to enjoy it.
that'd be perfect. That would be perfect, yeah.
Just be dropping people to you.
Any other?
Yeah, just really
Sure,
quick.
absolutely.
Councilman Moore. I'm looking at some of your aesthetics and your layouts. Kind of explain to me the total square footage of the area.
So,
'Cause I know there's a lot of different motifs in there.
yeah, so basically, it's 4,900 square feet. If you walk in, you'll have most of the tap room, and where most of the public will be is gonna be on one main side of it. The production space will be on the other side, so tap room is probably gonna be somewhere around, I would say, a little bit over 2,000 square feet and a little under 2,000 square feet for the production area.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's about half and half. It's about half and half.
Very interesting concept.
Yeah.
It is a unique concept. Anyone else?
I have one comment, sorry.
No.
So Aaron, I haven't met you, but I've known David for a long time, and I just, you know, your work ethic is so amazing. I remember when you first started the Brewer's Kettle way up North Main, even with limited parking and limited space, it was always a thriving place. And now with your newer Brewer's Kettle, it's just so cool and artsy and fun, and thank you for your commitment to our city. We really appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it. I appreciate that.
Anyone else?
I want to echo exactly the same thing. I've been coming to Brewer's Kettle since you turned the key on the door, so thank you for commitment and the hard work that you've done there. I'm actually the Director of Music Ministries at First Methodist Church, so
You don't go before that, do you?
I'm ready to go across the parking lot. I've actually had quite a few calls from church members excited. Paddle South is actually owned by one of our church members, so you know, we're very, very excited about what's coming. We have a Bible study at Paddle South. You know, that's how liberal the church is, so I hope that we can do the same thing across the street with you also.
Well, you might want to head that north. Just say it. That's-
Well, we appreciate that. We can provide Sacramento wine.
I'll echo what Wesley said. I own a limousine company, and so I can tell you when people are planning all the events that we do, microbrewery tours, winery tours, whatever, the thing that hurts High Point is we only have a few options. For us, it's great, right up there, whatever, but most of my clients, they want to go to a city where they can hop by 2 or 3 or 4 places within an afternoon and enjoy some time together. And so I think with what we're creating in our downtown, your vision is great for what we want to do specifically in that area. So I hope that we'll be able to support you.
Thank you.
Go come get me a bite, so
Anybody else?
Bring samples next.
Yeah.
We're going to.
I have a couple quick questions for either one of you, but is there a food aspect and a music aspect in your plan?
There will be some entertainment, obviously, like, you know, some of the other tap rooms and stuff offer. And we'd be able to do food trucks and stuff as well. There's with the back area, there's a parking lot. I think it's maybe 16 spaces that's there. So either, you know, they could park up front on the street, which would be cool because you could walk around, you know, people from Paddle South could come over and kind of, you know, it'd be kind of interchangeable, or something in the rear, parking lot as well, pull it there. So there would be some food elements for sure.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be every night, but, you know, on
Sure,
specific
absolutely.
nights, it'd be
That's
cool
fine.
to have some stuff.
And I just have one ask, and it won't be any surprise to this council and probably most of you in this audience, but as you look for your accessories and your decor, please get them as locally and domestically as you can.
Absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it. Is there anyone else that has anything to say on council or in the audience concerning this matter? Okay, hearing none, I will close the public hearing on this item, and I will make a motion that item 2022-106 be approved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
That's all for finance.
All right. Next, we have our Community Development Committee items, and Councilmember Williams will be handling that.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is the only item for me tonight is item 2022-107. It is the demolition of dwelling 512 Denny Street adoption. I will keep talking.
I
give
can't
staff
see,
some time
glasses
for
on,
work.
glasses off, I got Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, the property that we have is 512 Denny Street. We had originally inspected this property on October 27th of 2020. We held a hearing on November 10th of 2020. No one appeared for that hearing. We then issued an order to repair or demolish with a compliance date on November 13th, 2020, with a compliance date of December 14th of 2020. The owner was issued a permit to make repairs on November 9th, 2020. The inspector spoke to the owner on October 15th of 2021. He advised the inspector that the money was tight and he was getting material when he could. He said he was going to get started on the work in about 2 weeks and start getting his trade inspections. The inspector had advised him he needed to get the work started because it could still go to City Council for requesting a demolition order. I did speak with Mr. Puente this afternoon, I believe it was, he called. He stated he did receive the notice, and we discussed a little bit about what had happened with the property and why it's not been completed before now. And he just stated that the materials were too expensive during the pandemic. They could not afford it. But now he states he has all the materials. And in reviewing the permit he was issued for repairs when I was talking with him, I saw that he'd only estimated the repairs for the permits at $12,000, which is very understated. And I advised him of that. So at this point, his permit that was issued exceeds really the scope of the work that he's doing. So he would need to get that updated as well. If anything were to move forward. In talking with him today, I was trying to hear plans to know how to move forward. He didn't really, he just said he'd get it done. But I didn't hear anything that really gave me an inkling that he was actually going to get it done or any type of deadlines or timeframes or urgency in that. And he did say he was going to come to the meeting tonight, but it does not look like he's here. But he did receive the notice, so I thought he would be here.
All right, thank you, Lori. Is there any questions for staff? Is there anyone here to speak for or against this item? All right, hearing none, I'll make the motion to approve item 2022-107, ordinance demolition of dwelling 512 Denny Street.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for the approval of this item. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that ordinance passes then.
Thank you, Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay. Planning Development doesn't have any items. The one item that's impending will be coming back on the 21st. So we'll move to our general business agenda, and for that, we have our Human Relations Commission 2022 work plan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jerron Hollis, Managing Director. I wanted to, every 6 months, the provisions in our ordinance have the Human Relations Commission present their work plan to council. Before I get started, I wanted to recognize the council liaison, Councilmember Johnson, and we also have our Vice Chair, Sharon McGregor, and another one of our commissioners, Commissioner Gilbert, and also our Human Relations Manager, Race McCray. This is a very spirited bunch. We've got a lot of new, this year, a lot of new appointees to the Human Relations Commission. So in the information that you see, there are a few items that came out of the January 13th retreat, the biennial retreat. Among those, what you'll see is the commission proposes to establish a Human Relations Youth Council to develop greater outreach to High Point's Latinx community. to explore ways to bridge the gap between community and law enforcement. And the commission, as is required, proposes a request to council to add an additional standing subcommittee to concentrate on matters related to social justice. So with those recommendations from the commission, staff recommends approval of the work plan items presented by the Human Relations Commission. I'm here to answer any questions, and Mr. McCray is here as well if there's anything we can answer about this 2022 work plan.
Anyone with any questions or comments?
Is there on that, the student thing, is that something different than the thing that I saw in the bylaws and activated back in 2017?
Yeah, it's a synthesis of what we had before with the Student Human Relations Council, part of what we did when you were the liaison, and it's bringing more in line some of the components of adding youth to getting engaged and involved. So you'd recognize it similar to the student ambassadors I think we had when you were but this would be more comprehensive and really give our students in our community additional opportunities to participate in some of the things that are important to them through the commission.
My challenge is, many things have changed. I was on the committee for two years as liaison. Is participation was always a struggle with the current subcommittees that we already had. And now you throw on a third subcommittee. It sounds really good, but if it loses steam down the road, sometimes can be, I'm happy to support what you guys want to try, but I'm just saying, I mean, to even get a quorum on the subcommittee, it's hard enough at the commission level. Now you start getting all these other things. What was the interfaith one was?
Interfaith and international were two standing committees.
Those were really tough, even for me. I was in there trying to do what I could to keep the attendance up so they could be effective and do what they were tasked to do. But do you foresee any challenges of getting enough participation to support another subcommittee?
Yeah, one of the discussions that we had at the retreat was whether the committees, the subcommittees that we had reflected the passion and the desire of the participants on the commission. And so with COVID and with some of the other challenges, what you find is that the participation on the committees is a reflection of the interests, values, and excitement of the people that are on the commission. So the suggestion for the Social Justice Committee in this subcommittee in this example was brought up by a commissioner. So we think it's important that any initiatives that we do as far as participation are commissioner-led, and our hope is that if there are commissioners that are passionate about the work, they will volunteer to do the work connected to it. And Joanne's looking at me, so I don't know if she had a question. Okay.
But the other two subcommittees should stay intact. Those are still.
They will be intact. That was a part of the discussion. COVID put us behind on a lot of things with getting out and engaging with the community. So yes, it's a suggestion that was thoroughly discussed by the group, but I appreciate that observation.
I got a question,
Yes.
kind of in the same vein. In other programs across the city where we had issues with getting people to show up or be there, the ones who have used Zoom or remote meetings, the numbers picked up big time. Even one of them, as an example, is the down payment assistance program, getting participation from people to show up to actually go take the class. Once they went remote, that increased quite a bit. And I was curious, has that helped your group? I know that the singular meeting now, I was invited to it, so that's the reason I was there. When I was there, you had a full screen, so it looked like everybody was there and it was busy. So I was just curious to that point.
The short answer is yes. Giving commissioners the flexibility to participate, kind of necessitated by COVID, but that hasn't quite gone away yet. So we're still seeing participation, but as we transition and things open back up, my hope is that momentum will continue as we move to meeting back in person.
Comment and
Other question?
question, real
Yes.
quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Question is to a city clerk. Did you receive my, had an application for an appointee of Ward 3 for Human Relations? You should have gotten today. Okay, I'll double check on that. Okay, and then also a comment, and I'm sure Councilmember Jones, because you came up with that idea originally, and it was a really great idea. But now, and of course, we hate saying the C word still, but colleges have become more competitive. So I don't know if you've contacted any of the Guilford County schools, and if they could get either some type of credit for leadership, something that they can use on their college applications.
Race has been working a lot with this,
Okay.
so I'll defer to him on that.
Yeah, so we have already talked to the commission, also had that same suggestion.
Perfect, okay.
And we've got some contacts at schools. I think that the hope would be that there would be some kind of contact, if nothing else, at least some volunteer hours, which is an important part of all of this anyway.
Yes.
And so we have been looking at what this would take to go even a step further. I think that one of the problems is we felt like we couldn't really work too hard on some of these things until council had approved it. So we've, we've been tentative in our outreach in case council had further questions before we got too far along.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay. All right, folks. So they are requesting approval of this work plan. Is there a motion?
Move motion approved.
Motion approved by Councilman Jefferson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. We do have some minutes to be approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Madam Manager?
Okay,
Sorry.
there is a motion to adjourn that I have to acknowledge. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adjourn, but before we adjourn, I'm going to recognize the manager for a couple of things before we vote.
Thank you so much, Mayor, members of council. I wanted to take an opportunity to let Jerron introduce a new staff member that we have with us tonight that's been helping with our council meeting. And then I wanted to share just an update with council on our one-day hiring event that we held on the 26th. So we'll start with Jerron first, please.
I'll be quick and I'll get out of the way. I want to introduce Rakia Worthy. Rakia's been with us since January, and we were fortunate to get her from A&T, and she is one of our communication specialists that works a lot in support of the High Point Theater. So we wanted to introduce Rakia and welcome her to our family and our organization.
We held a one-day hiring event on the 26th of February, and this was something that was new for the city of High Point. And I wanted to take a moment to thank the staff members that participated in that effort. Some looked a little bit strange when we were trying to pull everything together to pull this off. We had a number of registrants that set up in advance to participate in this event. We had 32 vacancies in our Public Services Department, and we talked about that and how it was having some potential impacts on our ability to be able to provide services. After that event, we actually had 32 individuals that were offered positions that came through that event. And that was all done in one day. We had the interviews there. After the interviews were extended, we did the background checks and the drug screen for those employees, and 25 of the 32 came through, completed the process, passed the background, and they will begin working with us on the 14th with new hire orientation. So that event was very successful. It was met with a lot of excitement. It was something new for us. We'll consider if we need to do it again in the future. So I wanted to just say kudos to staff and to everyone that came.
All right, is there anything else? Hello?
Oh,
Just
no.
want to
Oh, no.
recognize that. I'm done.
Oh, wait, now I want to say something. Okay, so March is Women's History Month, and so I'm sure y'all know, but I'm going to make you again aware of it. For the first time of a March history in High Point,
we have the first woman city manager. So we are definitely, we're having, Carvina and I, she's a county commissioner, her and I put together a group of women, and we're going to do the first, women's celebration at the Truist Point on March 20th from 3 to 5:30. It's a free event. We've got a female DJ. We're going to have line dancing. Tom Campbell with the Family Services at the Piedmont is going to set up a booth about, domestic violence. And so we're going to honor women, celebrate women, and just have a really great time. So if you know or love a woman, you're welcome to come. Kids, men, women. So please join us as we celebrate.
If I may tag along with Micah says, following that, 4 days later, here at Center, we're having a salute to female veterans. Combat Army Officer Marjorie Eastman is going to be our guest speaker. It'll be at Congdon Yards, I believe it's 4 o'clock. But that's going to be our first time doing it specific to honor our female veterans. I know we've got one in the room, but if you can come out and support what we're doing there, it'd be great.
Also, Mayor, on March 17th, we'll be honoring with our police department in a memorial service, and certainly of great importance, those who have served and have given, I would say, the ultimate sacrifice. And so I think that's such an important thing to commemorate. So
That's right. That's going to be at Green Street Baptist Church, I think?
yes.
Which church? Green Street Baptist.
Green Street.
I got the memo, we'll just go through. Okay, anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.